Ma'am,
Yes, Peter.
the light is said to have a dual nature of both a particle and a wave. So, ma'am, can you elaborate the point that light is a form of particle, as I said in the sentence?
Okay. See, like in this chapter, we have to discuss these two. We are discussing these two phenomena associated with light, that is reflection and refraction. In your class 10 syllabus, these two phenomena are there. But there are some other phenomena also which are associated with light, which you observe. Like this is photoelectric effect. Then there is interference, diffraction. Okay, all these there are these phenomena are also there, which we observe, which are related to the light. So when the explanation of these all different phenomena were given, that why this happened, like when we discuss, like in this chapter, what we are dealing is we are discussing all the phenomena of light by the simple property of light which you have learned from junior classes, like light has rectilinear propagation, that is light travels in straight line, and we are discussing all we'll be discussing all these phenomena of reflection and refraction, taking this property of light as basis, and this is the basis of geometrical optics, which is actually the part of your syllabus. And in this chapter, like we'll be discussing these phenomena using the geometrical optics concept only, that light travels in straight line. But like if we go for interference of light or diffraction of light, then we have to explain these phenomena. It is observed what exactly happens is that it is observed that when say a coherent source of light, or we can say two sources of light having same phase and all, we'll be discussing all these points later on. Okay, they pass through a space. It is observed that we observe dark and light bands of color. That means there is a place where the intensity of light is more, and then there is a place where intensity of light decreases. So we say
refraction and compression basically.
Not exactly reflection and compression. It is a phenomenon where the density, it is actually the material is present there. We are discussing is intensity of light, brightness of the light. Okay. So we can say that the waves overlap at one point. If you remember in chapter sound, we have discussed that there can be a constructive, the waves can overlap. If in the constructive way, then the amplitude increases, and if they overlap in the reverse order, then the amplitude decreases. Okay. The two waves overlap. Okay. Like we have discussed this thing. If there are two waves going through a medium, and if the two waves overlap such that crust of one overlap with the crust of the other, so what will happen? The amplitude of the wave increases. But if say crust of one overlap with the trough of the other, then depending upon what is the amplitude, they will be subtracted, and say if both have same amplitude, there will be no waves will be propagating like this. So destructive interference will happen, and if there are two waves having the crust of one is overlapping with the crust of the other, then constructive interference will happen. So amplitude will increase. Okay. So in this way, if sources, from two sources light is passing through space, and on the screen we are obtaining a place where brightness is more and the other place where the brightness is very less, or almost a dark range is obtained, it can only be explained when we assume light to have wave nature. Because then we can explain that there are places where constructive interference is happening, and there are places where destructive interference is happening, and hence this phenomenon is observed, right? So to explain interference or diffraction, we or scientists assume that light has wave nature. But some other phenomena are also observed, like as I told you, photoelectric effect or Compton effect, where what happens, like I'll explain you photoelectric effect. It's a phenomenon where it is observed that when a light of a certain frequency, a minimum frequency above that frequency is incident on a metal surface, that light is able to eject out electron from the metal surface. Okay. Now you know this thing. I think so this concept is clear to everyone, that the electron can be knocked out of an atom only if it is given a certain amount of energy, which is known as ionization energy, so that it gets excited and comes out or overcome the force of attraction between the nucleus and the electron. So that means for the electron to eject out of the metal surface, it has to gain the energy immediately so that it can jump out of from its orbit. Okay. Now if we say that light travels in the form of wave, that means a continuous energy is being supplied to the electron. It is not getting energy instantly. So knocking out of the electron can be explained like if say like I can say, like if you ever seen the two played with marbles or with balls, you have seen that if we throw a ball on the other ball which is kept on the surface, the moment that ball is hit the ball at rest, the second ball will jump out. Why? Because it is getting energy immediately, so its momentum changes by the conservation of momentum. Its momentum changes and it jumps out. Similar thing happens in the case of that electron in photoelectric effect, so it can be explained in the same way. That means immediately energy is being bombarded on the electron, and the electron gains that energy and jumps out of the atom. Okay. This can only be explained if we assume that light propagates in the form of energy package. So that means it hits the electron, it transfers all the energy to the electron gains that energy and comes out of the metal surface. So to explain these phenomena, we have to assume that light travels in the form of energy packets. Okay. So a lot of argument happened for a very long time. Then later on, it was concluded that light sometimes behaves as wave and sometimes behaves as particles. So finally, it was concluded that light has dual nature. It propagates as wave also, and it behaves as particle also. So it has particle as well as wave nature. Got it?
So now for particle part, can I say that light is made up of photons?
Photons. That photons is the energy packets. Yeah.
Okay, ma'am.
Right. So, but in this chapter, we'll be explaining all these phenomena using rectilinear propagation of light. Okay. Yes. Any other doubt, Peter?
One question.
Yes.
You said that the momentum of light is transferred to the electron on your
I'm not saying momentum of light. I told you with the example of where the balls were there. So I said that conservation of momentum happened, and the one ball hits and it transfers its momentum to the other. Okay.
Understood. Sorry, I understood.
So there is also it will happen like momentum and all things will come, but we'll not go to that particular part, energy, then everything will be there. Okay, but here I was referring to the momentum of the ball. That one ball has a momentum, it hits the other ball at rest, it transfers momentum to that ball, and hence the momentum of the second ball changes and it jumps out. So same thing happens when we explain photoelectric effect, and for that we have to assume and light travels as energy packets. Okay. So I hope this idea that why we say that light has dual nature is clear to everyone now.
Ma'am, where can this photoelectric effect be observed?
This photoelectric effect, like when we'll study later on in spectroscopy and all, we'll discuss, you'll be learning all these effects. But when we say that X-rays are formed, basically light is incident on the metal surface which ejects out the electron. This electron when falls on another metal, it excites the metals, and then when the excitation happens, then X-rays are released. So all these things are there, and you'll understand, and you'll study in spectroscopy when we'll study that part. Okay. So then you'll understand that where these things are happening. So we are using all these terms around us in various applications.
So ma'am, this topic we'll be able to connect to later. So
yeah, later on only. Right now you won't be having any connection over there because there are some other different things also. So we cannot jump to those topics. So I've given you a basic idea that why we say that light has dual nature. But you will understand all these things properly, you know, where this in spectroscopy also, and then photoelectric effect is there in class 12. So you'll be studying photoelectric effect in class 12. Okay, got it.
And then for destructive sound waves which are represented over there, so now over there the crest and the trunk both meet each other, what?
No, I have just shown a wave, two waves.
Okay.
Okay. That there can be a constructive interference and a destructive interference. It is not for the sound wave, because if you remember, in sound wave we used to make these waves have drawn as transverse waves, and sound is a longitudinal wave which propagates with variation in density or pressure of the medium. Okay.
So now for destructive, crest and trunk should be same. That is what it, right?
No, it like depends on, say if I'm having a wave, one wave has more amplitude as compared to the other. Say like this, and this is of smaller amplitude. Then when destructive interference will happen, there is still an amplitude. So the wave 1 has more amplitude as compared to wave 2. So they'll cancel out, but still the resultant wave will be of lower amplitude. Like this.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay, got it. So in this case, we are assuming that both the waves have same amplitude. Okay, 1 and 2 have same amplitude, then there will be zero. Zero disturbance or a plane line will be there. Okay. So now we'll discuss.
Excuse me, ma'am. This
yes.
constructive and destructive is only for transverse waves?
Yeah, it will be better understanding this by transverse wave.
Yes.
Now,
This constructive and destructive wave nature. Ma'am, this can be seen where?
no, it's not constructive and destructive. That means wherever two waves overlap, if they are overlapping with the same, that means if a crust of one is overlapping with the crust of other, the amplitude will increase. And if the reverse is happening, the amplitude will decrease. You can do like this if you are having a long rope and say the two people holding on the other side, they start waving the wave and say they are moving in the reverse direction. You will say that the waves will not be formed on the string. Have you ever played with the rope like this? Like in skipping rope. So if you just try this, if you try to generate waves on the skipping rope, say you do have that only, and say the two corners, when your friends are trying and using these waves, but in the reverse order. That means one is taking up, other is going down, and trying to generate waves on the on the rope, you will find that the amplitude will die out. But if you take it in the same way, so the amplitude will increase. So this is how you can see over there. Okay. Or somewhere like say where I can see like water is there, water ripples are there, and say on the water surface a disturbance happens, and then you generate another disturbance which is happening in say reverse form. Then you see that the wave will die out. Okay, the wave will start dying out. Or if you can generate the ripples in the same form, the amplitude will increase. So these are the examples where you can see in your surrounding you that where this thing happens in nature also. Okay. So now let's come to reflection in plane mirror. Now, in case of plane mirror, say there is a point, or I'll make an extended object only. This is an extended object A and B. Okay, and a ray of light starting from A is incident on the mirror surface. If it is incident normal to the mirror surface, it will retrace its path. Okay, why? Because angle of incidence is 0 and hence angle of reflection will also be 0. And another ray which is incident at a certain angle will get reflected back, making the same angle. Now we can see these two reflected rays, this one and this one. They are diverging out, spreading out. So that means these reflected rays will never meet in front of the mirror. But for an observer, if he observes, he'll see that these two reflected rays are coming, and to his eyes, it appears that they are starting from a point behind the mirror. The point where it appears that these rays, reflected rays, must have started, is the point where the image of point A will be formed. So I'm writing it as A dash. Similarly, from B, a ray which is incident normally or will get reflected back, and another ray, going to laws of reflection, will get reflected back. These two reflected rays, when extended backward, appear to start from a certain point where the image of point B will be formed. And for all the other points between A and B, in the same way we can plot that the image will be formed in between A dash and B dash. So A dash and B dash is the image of object A and B. So AB is an extended object and its image A dash B dash we are obtaining. From here we can see that in case of plane mirror, the image formed is virtual. Virtual image is the image which is formed behind the mirror, or we can say when the rays diverge out, reflected rays diverge out, the image which is formed is virtual image. Okay? When the rays never meet in front, okay, at a point, actually never meet at a point, then the image formed is a virtual image. So it is a virtual and erect image. This characteristic, write down the characteristic. The image formed is virtual. Image formed is virtual, erect, okay, same size as that of object, and at same distance from mirror, okay, and at the same distance from the mirror. Same distance, that means the distance of the object and distance of the image will be same. From the mirror will be same. Distance of object and image will be same from the mirror. Distance of object and image will be same from mirror. And one more characteristic. Yes, please tell me.
Laterally inverted.
Lateral inverted.
Lateral inverted. So the image formed is also laterally inverted. That means the left appears to be right of the image. So these are the characteristics of the image formed by the plane mirror. Right. Now, you'll be getting many questions if you are preparing for a competitive exam. So you can get many questions on plane mirrors. There are different varieties of questions you can obtain on plane mirrors only. So we'll be discussing various questions and concepts from which the question could be asked from the plane mirror. So first of all, you'll write down. I think so all these points are clear to everyone. Okay, characteristic of image formed by the plane mirror is clear to everyone. Write down first concept, and that is that whenever a plane mirror is rotated by a certain angle, keeping incident ray same. That means we are not changing the direction of incident ray, only plane mirror is rotated. Then reflected ray will get rotated by by double the angle. Okay, you can remember this result directly. Wherever the question will happen, will be asked regarding this concept that say a mirror is rotated by a certain angle. So by how much the image will be rotated? So it will be rotated. Sorry, how much will the reflected ray will be rotated? It will be rotated by double the angle. Okay, let's discuss this thing, how it happens or how we can prove it. So this is a plane mirror, and this is incident ray. The ray which is incident on the mirror surface, normal, and a reflected ray. Right? So incident ray and one normal because it will rotate it, and this is R1 for the first reflected ray. Now say this mirror is turned or rotated by a certain angle. Okay. So this mirror is rotated or turned by a certain angle. Say it is turned by theta. Okay. So now normal, new normal on this surface will be this, say N2. So angle of incidence will get changed. So this is I2. Angle between two normals will still remain theta only, right? And incident ray remains the same. But if angle of incidence becomes I2, the angle of reflection will also be R2, which will be equal to I2. Right? This is R2, where I2 equals to R2, and this is I1, which is equal to R1. Okay. So can I say that I2 is equal to I1 plus theta? I2 equals to I1 plus theta, and since I2 is equal to R2, we can say that it is equal to R2, or it can be written as R1 plus theta. Any doubt in this relation what I have written here? So R2 will be given as R1 plus theta. Correct? Okay. So now we are interested to find out that by how much angle this two rays, by how much angle this ray will get, reflected ray will get turned. Okay, this is what we are interested to find out. Say O is a point where the rotation happens. Which point, below?
Ma'am, after the I2 point.
Okay. Okay. I'm saying that initially, say this was the first mirror position M1, for which incident ray makes an angle I1 with normal N1, and reflected ray makes an angle R1. Okay, with the normal. This point was clear. Then when we rotated the mirror by an angle theta, the angle of incidence becomes I2. And I2 can be given as I1 plus theta, because if the mirror is turned by theta, the angle between the two normals will also be theta. Okay. So I2 will be equal to I1 plus theta. Okay. And the ray will get reflected back at R2. And the angle which the normal it makes with the normal will be given as R2 only. Okay. And here I'm just don't get confused, I'm using R1 and R2, but when I'm denoting it, capital R and capital R1 and capital R2 represent the ray, and small r1 and small r2 represent the angle of reflection. Got it? Is it clear now?
Yes.
So now we are interested to find out the angle. Which angle? R2 O R. Okay. So how can I find out? If I can subtract N1 O R2 from N1 O R, then what I'll get is R2 O R1. Right? Now N1 O R2 can be given as this theta plus R2 minus N1 O R1 will be given as R1. Is it clear? Any doubt in this? How we done it? Angles you can see here. This is N1 O R2. So it can be given as N1 O N2, and N2 O R2 will be given as theta plus R2. Is this relation clear? Now put the value of R2 over here. So I'll get here theta plus R1 plus theta minus R. So my answer is 2 theta. So we have turned the mirror by angle theta, and the ray gets reflected by angle 2 theta. This is the proof. We will use this result directly. Whenever such question happens, where they are asking that mirror is get turned by this much angle, by how much angle the ray will get reflected ray will get turned, so it will be always a double the angle. Okay. This result is clear.
How did you get theta over there?
Where better?
Theta plus R2 minus R1.
I can write it as N1O N2, okay? N1O N2, and then N2O R2 plus N2O R2 minus N1O R1. Now just see, can you see this? N1O N2 is theta, N2O R2 is R2, and N1O R1 is small r1. Got it?
Yes, ma'am.
Sure. So next, yes, Peter.
Ma'am, what is R2O?
I'm saying this is what we are trying to know. R2O is this angle, which we have calculated is equal to 2R. This is what we are trying to find out, that by how much angle the reflected ray will get turned. So this is what we are interested to find out. Okay. Next, we'll discuss deviation. Okay, the second thing we'll learn is deviation produced in reflection. Now, what do you understand by deviation? Deviation means whenever the ray experiences reflection, by how much angle the path of the ray get changed. Okay, so you can write down that it is the measure of change in the path of the ray. Okay, it measures the change in path of incident ray after reflection. We represent deviation by an angle delta. Delta is the angle which we use. This is the denotation for deviation. This is how we will calculate deviation. So, the denote deviation. So, say this is a surface, and on this surface a ray is incident with normal. It makes an angle I. If there was not, this surface was not there, the ray would have gone straight like this. Okay? The reflection is happening because of this surface which is present here. Otherwise, this was the original path of the ray. Because of the surface, it experiences reflection, and the path of the light changes like this. This is reflected ray. This is incident ray. So, this was the original path which I have represented by this dotted line, and this is the path because of the reflection. So the change in this path happens here, and this angle is called as angle of deviation. Is it clear that what exactly is angle of deviation?
Yes,
right? And we know if you have to find out what is angle of deviation delta, it can be given as, we know that straight line makes an angle of 180 degree. So I can say 180 degrees is equal to I plus R plus delta. So from here we get delta equals to 180 minus I plus R, and since I is equal to R, finally I can write it as delta is equal to 180 minus 2I or equals to 180 minus 2R. This is formula to find out angle of deviation in terms of incident or reflected angle. Okay? Say this incident ray makes an angle delta, or sorry, alpha we say. So it makes an angle alpha with the surface. Okay? So from the figure if you can see, this angle will also be alpha, opposite angle, particular opposite angle. Okay? And with normal, if you can see, this side angle is alpha plus I, so other side it will be R plus alpha only, because 90 degree only, right? So from here, in terms of angle which the ray makes with the surface, we can also find out angle of deviation, which will be given as delta is equal to alpha plus alpha, that is equal to 2 alpha, where alpha is angle which the incident ray makes with surface, reflecting surface. Angle which incident ray makes with surface, reflecting surface. Are these two formulas clear to everyone? How to find out angle of deviation and what exactly deviation is? Okay. So you, all of you have written all these points? Yeah, did you?
One question. We're saying that the angle between the undeviated path of the incident ray and the surface is alpha because it's vertically opposite. Or
Yeah, this two will be opposite angles, no?
Okay.
Yeah, and here it is 90 degree, like normal and surface makes 90 degree, and here also. Okay, so that's fine.
Okay, fine.
Okay. So let's do a question now. Say these are two plane mirrors inclined at a certain angle. The angle is 60 degree. Okay. And rays incident on first mirror, making an angle of 60 degree with the surface. Okay. So what do you have to find out? You have to find out, this is mirror 1 and this is mirror 2. So find deviation experienced by ray from mirror 1, and second is find net deviation after two reflections. That means when it gets reflected from, after getting reflected from M1, when it gets reflected from M2, you have to find out what is the net deviation experienced by the ray. Okay, is this question clear? So first of all, I think so start with question number 1. Question number 1, everyone can do it, is the direct question. Right. Naman, correct. If you can also tell that in which sense this deviation is happening. No, sense means clockwise way and anti-clockwise. Also mention in which sense the deviation is happening, clockwise or anti-clockwise. So on the first surface, all of you have given that deviation is happening, angle is 120 degrees, and in which sense it is happening? It is in clockwise sense. This was the original path, ray will get reflected like this. So angle of deviation delta 1, and this turning is happening in clockwise sense. Now calculate how much deviation is happening on mirror M2. For that you have to find out what is angle of incident on the mirror M2 and all. Do the calculation and then tell how much deviation is happening on mirror M2. When it reflects from mirror M2, how much deviation ray experience on mirror M2. So net deviation will be equal to delta 1 plus delta 2. So if they are in same sense, you will simply add. If they are in opposite sense, you will subtract. Okay? So try it and then we'll discuss. I've given you hint how to approach this question. Very good, Naman. Your answer is correct. Amika, correct answer. Janvi, your answer is correct. Adya, correct answer. Ayushman, your answer is also correct. Karnika, correct answer. So let's discuss it now. Okay? So you can see here, on the first mirror surface, delta 1 can be calculated directly using the relation because angle of incidence here is 30 degrees. So it will be equal to, or I can say angle of, the angle which the ray makes with the surface is also given. So I can use that result also. Either I can use 2 alpha or I can use 180 minus 2I relation. So either of two I'm getting the result as 120 degrees in clockwise sense. Okay? It is turning in clockwise sense. Now if this angle is 60, this angle will also be 60 degrees. And sum of all the angles of a triangle is 180, so this angle should also be 60 degrees. So the ray will get reflected back. Angle of deviation delta 2, which is again happening in clockwise sense only. And delta 2 from here also comes out, if you calculate using 2 alpha only, will be 120 degrees in clockwise sense. Since both the deviations are happening in the same sense, the net deviation, to find out net deviation, we'll simply add them. If one was in clockwise and another was in anti-clockwise, then we have to subtract them. But because here in this case both are in same sense, so we'll simply add it. So it will be 120 degrees plus 120 degrees, that is equal to 240 degrees in clockwise sense. Okay. Is this question clear to everyone? How we have approached? How we have solved this concept? So this type of question may be asked on deviation. Okay, angle of deviation. Concept is clear to everyone?
Yes.
Yeah, that's one.
Okay then. Let's move to the next type of questions. And this is, you must have heard that this question is also asked very commonly, that how many number of images are formed of an object which is placed in between a combination of mirror.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll discuss this concept also, called concept on plane mirror. Okay, to find number of images formed by plane mirrors. Number of images formed by plane mirrors inclined at certain angle. Okay. Now say these are two plane mirrors which are inclined at an angle of theta. And the object is kept somewhere in between. You have to find out how many number of images will be formed. So step 1, you'll find out this ratio n, which is equal to 360 upon theta. Then you'll see that if this n is even, an even number, so number of images will be, in this case, if the number comes out to be even number, the number of images will be n minus 1. Okay? And if this n comes out to be an odd number, then two cases comes, the number of images will be equal to n minus 1 if a condition is mentioned, and it is that the object is placed symmetrically between the angle bisector of the mirrors. If this condition is, this statement is given along with the question that the object lies symmetrically between angle bisector.
So if it is placed symmetrically, it always has to be between the angle bisectors?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, symmetrically on the angle bisector. Okay. In that case, the number of images will be n minus 1. And if it is placed anywhere, that means if in the question they have not specified that the object is kept on symmetrically between the two mirrors, in that case, we will take that object is placed asymmetrically, and if the object is placed asymmetrically, the number of images will be n, whatever the odd number is. Okay. So if in the rest of the cases, if this statement, that means symmetrical statement is not given, we'll assume that the general case, that is object is kept anywhere in between the two mirror arrangement, and then the number of images will be n. Okay. If say n comes out to be a fraction, you do the calculation and you get n as a fraction, then the integral part of the fraction will be the number of, whatever the integral part of the fraction is, that will be the number of images. Then will be the number of images. Okay. Is this point clear to everyone? Now say I'm giving you a question, simple question. Say object is placed symmetrically. I'm giving this question.
What will the number of images be if it's a fraction?
Say let's take any example. Say I'm saying that a fraction comes out to be 4.7. Then you do the calculation, whatever angle is. So your number of images then will be, in that case, will be 4. You will take the number of images as, say you do this, you calculate n, that means 360 upon theta, and say the fraction comes out to be 4.7. Then the number of images will be 4. So whatever the angle is given, if there is a fraction, then you will remove the decimal part, and whatever the integral part is, that will be the number of images. Okay. So let's do a question. Find number of images formed of an object placed symmetrically. Okay, between the plane mirrors, we'll understand this thing. So I'm giving you values that when the plane mirrors are inclined at an angle, number 1, angle of inclination between the plane mirror is 60 degrees. Number 2, it is 72 degrees. Number 3, it is 90 degrees. So do these 3 questions.
That is the object placed symmetrically or asymmetrically?
No, I've mentioned that in all the cases, object is placed symmetrically. Okay, between the angles, between the mirrors.
कौन सा है?
Inclined at an
वाला
angle. Theta is first case is 60, then 72, and then 90 degrees.
पता नहीं क्या करता है. तो पापा ने बोला मैं पापा को दे जा मुझे दे जो चुपचाप 5 मिनट्स के अंदर मैं आवाज भी नहीं लूंगी डायरेक्ट मारूंगी पहले चलो
5 8 मिनट्स में जितने भी कंप्लीट हो जाएगी जितने भी पूरी हो जाएगी
Ishani, your answer is correct. Okay, Ayush, correct answer. Agani, correct answer. Mahalakshmi, your answers are correct. Pritish, correct answer. Okay. So let's discuss now. In first case, n comes out to be 6, no?
Yes, ma'am.
So number of images will be 6 minus 1, that is 5. So in this case, symmetric statement doesn't make any difference. It will always be n minus 1. In second case, when you calculate n, it comes out to be 360.72. 5. It will be 5, no? It will be 5. It is an odd number, and because in statement is given, it is symmetrically placed, so the number of images will be 5 minus 1. So that means you will get answer 4. If symmetric word was not mentioned in the question, then we have to take it asymmetric case. So then our answer would be 5. Okay. And here in the third case, n will be equal to 4. Okay. And answer is 4 minus 1. That is 3. Got it? Is this clear to everyone? Now, what is the angle? The plane mirrors are not inclined at any angle. They are parallel to each other. Okay. If the two plane mirrors are parallel to each other, how many number of images will be found?
Indirect.
Is front. Okay. Why so?
It will be 360 by 0, which will be indirect.
So now, first of all, we'll understand that how this infinite number of images will be found, and then we'll discuss what type of questions can be asked. Okay. So when the plane mirrors are parallel to each other, what will happen? Say this is an object kept somewhere between the plane mirror arrays, and say they are separated. The mirrors are separated by a certain distance d. And so what will happen? Say a ray starting from the object, say incident on mirror 1. I'm taking this as mirror 1, and this is mirror 2. Okay. So this ray, when incident on mirror 1, will get reflected back at the same angle. That means the angle at which it is incident, and exactly at the same distance behind the mirror, first image of the object will be formed. Okay. Right. Similarly, a ray which is
But don't we need 2 rays to form an image?
yeah, 2 rays, I can take another ray also, which will get reflected at a certain angle, different angle, but the rays will meet at the same angle. Or I can say that take a ray like this, going straight, getting reflected back So in the same way, okay? So ray which is starting from the object going on the mirror 2 will get reflected back making the same angle. That means that which is incident, and the image will be formed exactly at the same distance. What is the distance of the object in front of it? Now what happens? This is the first stage. Now you can see there is another ray which is incident, which is coming an incident on mirror M1. This ray which is incident on mirror M1, the source of the point from where for the mirror the rays are coming is not O. It appears to be I1 dash. That means for the mirror M1, the second object appears to be the image formed in mirror M2, right? Because the rays are coming from I1 dash. So now I1 dash appears as the second object for mirror M1, and mirror M1 will form image of I1 dash behind it. So that means now the distance will be the distance of image I1 dash for mirror M2. So at the same distance the image will be formed.
Can you please repeat this?
Okay. I'm saying what exactly is happening, that when the ray from the object incident on mirror M2, the ray will get reflected back, image I1 dash will be formed in mirror M2. Now this ray which is reflected back from mirror M2, when it's incident on M1, for M1, this ray is coming from, the second ray is coming from which point? Is it coming from O or is it coming from I1 dash?
I will dash.
So that means I1 dash will act as the second object for M1. So now M1 is forming the image of I1 dash behind. So the second image in M1 is formed of the first object of, first image of M2. The first image of the object which is formed in M2 will serve as second object for M1. In the same way, the first image formed in M1 will serve as second object for M2. That means the image will be found exactly at the same distance behind M2, the distance at which I1 is in front of M2. So this image, this ray will get reflected dash. And image of I1 will be formed behind M2, and this I'm naming as I2 dash. And in the same way the things will happen. Now I2 dash will act as third object for M1, and I2 will act as third object for M2. So in this way what exactly is happening? The image formed in one mirror acts as object for the other mirror, and hence infinite number of images are formed when the two plane mirrors are kept parallel to each other. Is this concept clear to everyone? Why infinite number of images are formed? Okay. Any doubt in how the images are formed? Infinite images are formed? Then how you get the question? Question will be like this. They can ask you that till the distance of second and third image formed in mirror M2 from the mirror or from the object, or what is the distance between these two images formed in M2? Say what is the distance between fourth and fifth image formed in M2? And so on. So any variety of question can be asked using this concept. Is it clear? I'm again repeating. Question can be asked. Tell the distance of second and third image formed in M2 from the object, or formed in M1 from the object, or what is the distance of the image 2 from the mirror M1, or what is the distance between the first image of M1 and third image of formed in M2. So in this way, different variety of questions can be asked. Okay.
Between the consecutive images, the distance
between the no, not it will not be D always. Okay, it will be different. Now depends. Let's discuss it now. That how we can find out what is the distance or what is the position of the images formed in the mirror. Idea is clear that how the images are formed. This idea is clear to everyone?
Yes, sir.
That's fine.
Okay, sir. Now let's see. Say that say the object is at a distance x from mirror M2. So distance from M1 will be D minus x. Okay. So the first image is formed at a distance of x. Okay, and this image will be formed at a distance of D minus x. Now, if you see what is distance of, I told you that the second image formed in mirror M2 will be at the same distance as of the whatever the force object is acting. So object for M2 is second object for M2 is I1. So I1 is at a distance of D minus x plus D. That means 2D minus x. So the distance of I2 from the mirror M2 will be equal to 2D minus x. In the same way, the second object for M1 is I1 dash, which is at a distance of x. So from M1 distance will become D plus x. So the image I2 will be at a distance of
3D minus x.
D plus x. And so on. But of course, it appears to be quite difficult or quite confusing how to do it again and again, and if it is given for fifth or sixth image, it is a tiresome process. So we can do like this.
Ma'am, I'm not able to understand how you got D plus x and 2D minus x.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I'll tell you. We know that what is the second object for M2? Which position is second object for M2? Is I1 second object for M2? M2 is mirror. For mirror 2, first object is actual object and second object. The second image is formed of I1. What is distance of I1 from M2?
From
Just right.
2.
Yeah.
Ma'am, D plus x.
No.
2D plus x. 2D minus x.
2D minus x. And so that means the image will be formed at the same distance 2D minus x.
I didn't understand. Ma'am, can you explain how you got D minus x?
Repeat. If this is x, total distance between two mirrors is D. Then what is distance between mirror 1 and O? Won't it be D minus x? Okay, we'll stop in variable form because variable form is quite confusing sometimes. So let's take some values, constant values. Say D is equal to 10, x is equal to 4. Then what will be the value of this D minus x? What distance between O and M1 will be what? 6, na? ऐसे ही होगा?
Yes, ma'am, yes.
No. So I1 will be formed at a distance of 6 from the mirror M1, and I1 dash will be formed at a distance of 4 from the mirror M2. What is the distance of I1 from M2?
4.
Not 4. And again, I1, not I1 dash. I1 from M2.
6, ma'am.
Not 6 because 6 plus 10. It is 6 plus 10.
16.
So the image will be formed at 16. And I2 dash will be formed at a distance of 16 from M2. Got it?
Yes, ma'am.
Getting the conclusion, step by step, if it was small, if a slight mistake happens, so answer will be wrong. So we'll learn a shortcut depending upon the concept we have discussed. Okay? So how we can write down all the values? Say we have to find out what are the images formed, in behind the mirror M1 and M2. Okay? Now, taking this example, say we know that distance of object from M1 is 6 and that from M2 is 4. So clearly, first image in M1 will be formed at how much distance? 6. And M2 will be formed at 4 centimeter. I'm taking this distance in centimeter. Any doubt in this? Because O is at a distance of object is at a distance of 6 centimeter from M1 and 4 centimeter from M2. So the first first image behind the mirror M1 will be formed at 6 cm and M2 will be formed at 4 cm. This is clear because image and object are at the same distance from the mirror. Okay. Now when it comes to second image, we know that now this image of M1, that means first image of M1 will act as the object for M2. So this image is at a distance of 6 from M1 and distance between M1 and M2 is 10. The total distance between M2 and image I1 will become what? 6 plus distance between the two mirrors. That means 6 and we add the distance between the two mirrors. What is it? 10. So distance of I1 from M2 will be 16 and at the same distance behind the mirror M2, image will be formed. Got it?
Ma'am, can you see the screen again?
Just see. I'm again doing it step by one by one only.
Ma'am, why are we measuring the distance from M2?
Okay, I'll tell you. Now say this is object. Distance between the two mirrors is say 20 centimeter, or I'll take that only, same example, 10 centimeter. Object, and this is mirror M2. Object is at a distance of 4 centimeter. Okay, from M2 and 6 centimeter from M1. Now tell me, the first image formed in M2 will be how much behind M2? Distance of image I1 dash, which is formed in
4
M2.
centimeters.
4 centimeter. Okay, this distance is 4 centimeter. Is clear to everyone? And this distance is
6 centimeters.
6 centimeter. And I'm naming this image as I1. Okay, so images in M1 are named as I1, I2 and so on, and M2 are named as I1 dash, I2 dash and so on. Okay, now I'm saying that this image I1 dash will act as an object
Right, ma'am.
for mirror M1. So now what is the distance of this I1 dash from M1? Because we know that whatever the distance of the object is from the mirror, at the same distance behind the mirror, image will be formed. So how will I find out? 4 plus
4
distance
plus
between the two mirrors. That means 4 plus 10. So the image will be formed at a distance of 14 centimeter. The same thing we are doing here. Okay. The first image formed in M2 will act as second object for M1. So the distance between the image and the mirror will be, we can easily calculate by adding the image distance of the given mirror and distance between the two mirrors. So we'll add 10. So this will become how much? 14 centimeter. So the second image is M2 will be formed at a distance of 14 centimeter. Now this image, which is at a distance of 14 centimeter behind M1, will act as third object for M2. So distance from M2 will be how much? Distance of the image from M1 plus distance between M1 and M2. That is what we'll do. We'll add 10. We'll add 10 here. This will become 24 centimeters. And similarly like this. 26 and so. So that means if they ask us any given image, say they ask us 5th and 6th image. So in this way it becomes easier to calculate.
Yeah.
Okay. 4th. So in the same way you can do it. This will be 36, this will be 34 and so. So now you're getting that first image in M1 is formed at 6 cm, second image is at 14 cm from the mirror M1, then 26 and then 34. In the same way in M2, 4, 16, 24 and 36. And you can calculate, if any other numbers are also asked. Is this clear? Is this thing clear to everyone? Now if I ask you anything, if you have drawn this table, say I ask you that find the distance of, I'm giving you the question, find distance of third image formed in M2 from object. Yes, find
24.
Not 24. Just read the question complete. 24 is the image distance from M2, but I'm asking you from object. So from object it will be
28.
24 plus distance between M2 and object, that is 4. So your answer will be 28. Got it?
Yeah.
So whatever question is asked, I think so if you can draw this table, then you can ask, you can solve it according to the question. So for the two plane parallel mirrors, placed parallel to each other, any such type of question, I think so you people will be able to solve. Okay. Now in different values of this similar type of question, say these are two plane mirrors. And distance between them is 5 root 3 centimeter. And a ray is incident at one end of the mirror, making an angle of 30 degrees. Okay. We have to find out the maximum. We have to find out the number of reflections in which ray will cross the mirror element. So the question will be find number of reflections in which ray will cross this mirror arrangement. Okay. In one reflection, say it has covered a distance of x. So, and say the separation between the two, if I take it as d, then tan of angle theta will be equal to x upon d. Using this, you can find out what is the value of x, and then you have to see that in how many times x the distance 20 centimeter will be covered. Okay. And then calculate number of reflections in which the ray will come out of the mirror arrangement. Actually, we can say that the rays will, from this point, the number of reflections will be 1 because when you
So will it be 5 in total?
Yeah, total number of reflections will be
We
5.
should add the first reflection.
We'll add the first
That
reflection.
becomes 5.
10. So D is how much? D is 5 root 3 into 10, 30 will give you 5 centimeter. So the 20 centimeter distance will be covered in how many reflections? 4 reflections. So this is first reflection, then second, then third, then fourth. But if you calculate how much total number
refraction will be there. So we have to calculate the first one also, the initial one where the initially the ray is getting incident. So the total number of reflection, your answer will come out to, we will be adding the first reflection also. So your answer is 4 plus 1, that is 5. So in 5 reflections, the ray will come out of this mirror arrangement. Okay?
Ma'am, should we count another?
So that's why. So you will not consider after this because only if the ray is incidenting on the mirror surface, then you will consider the reflection. So it will be out of the mirror arrangement.